pray that you continue to enlarge our partnerships. Without friends, we couldn't do what we do, and we're just so grateful that we can stand together as your people. Now be with us as we think about ministry and your kingdom. In Jesus' name, amen. Stick this here. Well, I don't know where to start. I'm glad to just answer questions, or I can just start off with kind of the what's new scene. Maybe I'll do that, and I'll keep it short. That'll maybe spur some questions on. The pandemic has been hard for everybody. I know it has been for you here. The good news of but there have been many blessings in the pandemic for all churches, and especially at Bethlehem. Let me give you a broad blessing for all churches that I've learned in the pandemic, and that is this. Most of us in the church are not good at equipping and training more workers, right? I mean, the old adage is in a church that 10% of the people do 90% of the work many times, or 20% of the people do 80% of the work and all that. One thing we've learned, or we're learning at Bethlehem, we're not perfect with it, but we're at least working more toward it. The pandemic has told us you always have to have a backup. You gotta have backup singers. You gotta have backup people on the cameras and stuff. You know, when you're doing ministry, as far as like video ministry, you have to have backup ushers, you have to have backups. And you know, that's what Jesus wanted at the beginning, right? I mean, if you go into Ephesians chapter 4, when he said, and he gave some to be apostles and prophets and evangelists, pastors and teachers, and then it says, to equip the saints for ministry. And that's a good thing, I think, that's come out of the pandemic. It's a reminder, never do ministry alone, as John Maxwell said many years ago. I heard him say, we need to equip more people because we never know when somebody's going to go down. Blessings at Bethlehem through the pandemic. So through the pandemic, we learned some things. One thing that we were able to do through, as I said before the sermon, gifts from you, we were able to start a video ministry. I mean, a real video ministry. So we have one good camera like this, and then we bought a system that allows cell phones to be the cameras. You know, this technology is crazy. But you say, well, why that? Well, at Bethlehem, what we've learned in the pandemic, we have about at least 24 people outside of our Bethlehem church family who tune in every week for worship now. And we have about 6 to 7 who are in small groups with Zoom Bible studies. You know, you've been on Zoom before. All of our Bible studies are on Zoom. We have more small group Bible studies. We have 8 small group Bible studies going. We grew by 2 in the pandemic. In fact, I don't think we're going back to in-person Bible study. I mean, maybe on Sunday morning, but you know, it's like, oh, Sherelle over there. She's like in one of our Sunday Bible studies. So like we have a Bible study, a small group that goes at 1 o'clock on Sundays. And Sherelle's at home. She's right in the Bible study. She's cooking dinner for her kids while she's listening. And, you know, I mean, she's a great example of it. And then, you know, like when it's a discussion-based thing. When she's something to say, she walks over to the phone and pushes the button and says, blah, 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 whatever it is, and then goes right back to it. And I think in the generation that is right now, you know, like our kids, right? That's their life. That's the way they go. I love people being in worship. I want people in God's house. But 2 Septembers ago, this last one, September 2019, I went out to California to visit my brother, and on the way I flew into LA and visited my niece who goes to UCLA. And so we had lunch, and we had the usual how things going and all that. She knew the question was coming, that her uncle's a preacher. Finally I got to it and I said, so, Ellie, where are you going to church? She hung her head. She said, "Oh, Uncle John." She said, "But I watch the live stream of my home church. They're from Fresno, up in northern central California. I watch the live stream from my church every Sunday." You know, and that is repeated over and over and over and over. We have a former member who is in church every Sunday on the live stream and is in Bible study. In fact, he comes to 2 of the small group Bible studies because he enjoys the conversation, and he lives in Chicago. His daughter moved up there, younger daughter, and he followed up so he could spend more time with his daughter. About 4 or 5 years ago, we had lost track of him, and now Jake is right on it. You know, Jake is with us over and over. And so, you know, that's another thing that this pandemic has taught us. We've got to not change Christ, not change the gospel, but we got to be flexible in how we reach, especially our kids. And so I'm grateful for the gift that you gave, that big gift last year, because it helped us equip so that the Bethlehem, because we had to put some new electrical and other stuff in to support the stuff we're doing. It helped us to really focus. And now Bethlehem, during this pandemic time, what we've been trying to do is start a brand new virtual church that's part of the Bethlehem family, and we're hoping it will continue. I mean, because think about it, you know, when kids go to school, you know, most kids are not going to campus ministries. They are not, you know, by and large. And I'm not saying we shouldn't have campus ministries. We should. But man, what an opportunity. You know, better to be online than not at all, right? And even when people are moving, you know, and going different places, they move, their job moved, most people are not following up and getting into a church home. They just aren't. Of like my kids, you know, your kids, right? And so maybe that's going to be a real opportunity. So we have seen it to be that. Let me pause there. Questions? Questions about our ministry, or I can tell you some more stuff.
You said you're not in person yet?
We're not in person. So we have not gone back. Last Sunday, we started having communion. So there's a 15-minute communion service where it's just, you know, communion where you can come in and sit down from 9 to 9:15. And then at 9:15 to 9:45, it's rotating communion, where there are stations, people can come in and take it and leave as they go. Why didn't we go back? Well, those of you who have been to our place, you would know, you know, Rich, that we're in an old 6-lane bowling alley. The ceiling in our whole church is maybe a whisker higher than that. And so trying to figure out how does that work, you know, as far as, you know, capacity in that. But the big problem has been this. On a given Sunday, we have a lot of visitors and we have a lot of kids. We have a lot of kids and youth who come to church but don't come with parents. They just come on their own. And, you know, that develops over time. Sherelle, Sherry, what age did you guys start coming to our church? 10. 7 or 8. And now their families are at the church. So that's the dynamic of what we do. And here's the thing that we had trouble with. How do we, where a lot of kids who come call us family, and they come and they hug and all that, how do we say, oh, stop, sorry, you know? We just couldn't figure out a good way of doing that, you know, to keep with health and social distancing. So we've been really slow toward it. I think we're going to start in November. And kind of what I think is going to happen is we're going to start with 2 services. We need 2, so we're going to go 8:30 and 10:30. And what we'll do is, I think the 8:30 will be more cautious for those who want a more cautious worship environment. I think the 10:30 will become more relaxed. I've learned this too. You can't legislate adults. You can't, you know? And you always have to be thinking about what's it going to be like when this pandemic is over? Because, like, if we said to somebody, now we have to keep people safe, don't get me wrong, But if we're militaristic about it, people remember that stuff. They remember that stuff. I'm talking about, well, even members remember that stuff, right? So we're looking, hopefully, November 15th to go back, but I'm speaking out of turn because I haven't talked to the board yet about it. Other questions, thoughts? Yep.
How has this affected members of your congregation as far as employment, resources for food, things like that affected?
Well, as far as employment, there are a number of people who lost jobs through it. The unemployment packages that have happened really were meaningful in our community. One of the challenges governmentally is figuring out how, well, it's just truth. Unemployment wages here and normal wages are here. And there's not the incentive at times to say, like if you're getting $600 unemployment, but you were only making $400, you would stay unemployed too, And so how does that all get navigated? I think that's a, big picture issue that our country has to deal with. Food-wise, though, we have been blessed by places like Resurrection and all the sister church network. The sister church network used to be just 4 churches. It's grown in our More Greater Things ministry over the last 5-6 years to about 11 churches. People really want to help, and they've been great. Not just bringing stuff, but even distributing stuff with us. We do it with social distancing. We find ways that you can do it. Hans, you bring up an important issue. We want to be cautious, and we want to have good health. We want to have good practices for the health of others. However, I think there's a little different perspective in the city, in our community, sometimes on this virus. Pastor Bowling and I were talking about this. We live with risks, probably more risks than the county, more of the time, And so when we've come to this, honestly, the neighborhood doesn't look really a whole lot different. There are people out there, and some people are reckless, but we're more of the ilk that you got to move on and keep living, and cautious. And I've changed in this. Dave, Pastor Grunwald, were you at the thing at Jeff Claytor's? Remember that early on gathering? Were you at that one with us?
I wasn't able to be there.
Okay. Well, Matt Miller of Lutheran Foundation hosted a big gathering. And I remember standing around with a bunch of people a bunch of pastors afterwards, and we were all kind of just sharing, well, what do we think all this? And the general sentiment of that was at that time, well, let's wait a little longer so that once we start, we're going to keep going and we're never going to stop again, And it was actually a good friend of mine, Kathleen Muller. She's been involved in a lot of Lutheran agencies around town. Her husband, Rick Muller, is the pastor at Atonement. He's a good friend of mine. Kathleen helped me see something, and she said, why not go forward and just realize that there's going to be pauses? There'll be pullbacks. You're going to move forward. There'll be pullbacks. To wait for when everything is going to be perfect, I don't think you're going to see that in a long time even yet, no matter what people have promised and all that. So that changed my world about, like 6-7 weeks ago. And so I think that's kind of more of what we're doing. And you do the best you can, and you count on people to have their distance and to wear their masks and all that. I hope you're comfortable with me at a distance here with this. It'd be too late otherwise. But like I told you, I already had it. Other questions? Yes.
Your Christ work was beautiful this morning.
Yes.
How do you get together and practice in this situation?
We've been together. Well, we've been together. We've gotten COVID together. We've not all of us, but we've been together. There's about 8 of us. So we were trying to figure out, music is so important, you know, in what we do in our style of worship and that stuff online. And so we've been together since the pandemic started in April, and this is an incredible group. I mean, and not everybody is here. There's about 8 of us. And we gather 3 times a week, 2-hour stretches. It's been an incredible commitment. 2 times we're practicing, and then we're taping worship there. And what we created is a bubble. So we all, and our kids all, are in a bubble, and we all, you know, kind of know this is part of what we've chosen to live. And God has been amazingly gracious to keep us mostly healthy. But my wife Sharon and I got COVID. Our daughter Tequila, who's not here today, who's part of that bubble, she got COVID. Annette got COVID. Was there anybody else? Oh yeah, my son Dan did, but he wasn't really in that bubble. So, you know, it's you risk some things, and you go forward, and you know, it's worked out. It's been essential to what we do, though, you know. And there's some people in our music ministry, some people that you've seen here, beautiful voices, who they're not comfortable with it, and that's okay. That's a big thing. We have to. I loved what Pastor Grunwald, what you were saying at the beginning when you're talking to people online. You know, everybody's got a different comfort level, and it's all okay.
Good morning, John.
Hey, good morning.
I've known you in all kinds of roles over many, many years. Well, the latest is an author.
Uh-oh.
I'm trying to get through your book, and it's tough reading. Maybe the author's not too perfect. But I guess I need a summary. I'm about a quarter through, and I'm like kind of close to figuring out what this book is. So as you said, you know, I'm very much passionate about ministry. I grew up in it.
Yep.
And it, you know, your book is something not forgotten. So my question is, what are you trying to say to the general public?
Excellent.
What are you trying to say to your partnership ministry?
Well, first of all, before I say this, I just want to say once again, I bow before you, Mr. KTVI, because you have been committed to make the Green Bay Packers your home team. Yeah! Me and my son Dan, we just bow. We bow. Thank you.
If you keep that up, I'm going to pull it off.
Well, anyway, yeah, thanks for the question. So what's the target of this book? This book is to, on the one hand, is to really hit 2 targets. One, I want whoever comes to work in the city after me to have some things to think about. You know, when you pick up the book and you look and you say 392 pages, it's written for people like me who are not fast readers. It's 93 essays. So you read 2-3 pages, sometimes even 1 page, you put it down, and they're different essays, so you can pick it up. But I just want somebody who's coming after me, or coming in addition to me, to be able to. I don't have all the answers, but I know what most of the questions are. I want them to just think about it. And there's a sort of a plethora of stuff in there. I mean, there's stuff about mission. There's stuff about how you care for people. There's stuff about fundraising. There's stuff about relationships with sister churches and that stuff in it. So I want to help some people who would go into ministry, what it's about. I also want some people, you know, like maybe if they're going to the SEM, to read. I'd love for them to read the book, and let's say they were really excited about going into urban ministry. I'd love for them to read the book and say, whoa, not for me. Because we don't want somebody in who's not a good fit either. The other side of it is, and Jack Gerber made a comment to me just, 15 minutes ago that I think it really hit this. I write it for those who are our friends in suburbs. We couldn't do the ministry that we do without you. And not just your check. We need your check. But we need you. We need you. We need you in your work and your support. We need you when you come taking Jesus to the streets. We need you like the work crew that came 2 weeks ago. We need you when you do the Christmas thing that the DeGuires, you know, have taken a lead in organizing. You know what? I need you on a lot of days just when you're encouraging. 2 comments that I think really hit this. Jack Gerber said, I finished the book. He just told me this morning. He said, And Jack, spent a lot of time at our church. He said, there were a lot of things in that I didn't even know about. I didn't even know some of the things that you were going through. My best friend from college and from high school, Pat Schultz, who lives in Texas, he's only gotten through about the first 70 pages. And after he went through it, he sent me a message and he said, John, I didn't know, I didn't know how many challenges, that you face. And it's not that everybody in the church has problems. Everybody has problems. But it's this, when you sit in the pastor's seat, as one of our past members, Ben Berry, used to always say, is that most people sitting in the church seats see their problem, and maybe 2 or 3 other people they know's problem. But when you sit in this seat, you see the problem of 200-300 people and their friends. And you want to help, but then you realize too that there are a lot of factors in it. Like there's an essay right at the beginning of the book, you probably had seen it there, about Tiana. It's called The Tangled Web. Even if you don't get the book, borrow someone's and read it. And it's not rocket science, but it's truth that people have so many influences and issues that have to do with the issues that they end up in. For example, just a thumbnail of that, this woman, Tiana, that's not her real name. I keep anonymity with that. She came to our church with her kids. Things were going great. She lived in our neighborhood. Everything was moving better. Her kids had a good place to go after school and all that. She was growing. She was in Bible study. She found a better place on the south side, deep south, like down around 55 in Bates. Well, how do you get down to get Tiana and get back, like that? We have a van ministry, and we did the best that we could, but, there's so many factors that go in. Tiana had 3 kids, and she wasn't getting support from baby daddies. And, sometimes people will stop it right there and say, well, she shouldn't have had those 3. Well, stop. The 3 kids are there. You know what? Our job is to raise up and encourage. Aren't we the place of constant new beginnings? We either are or we aren't. You know what I mean? Because if we say to someone, well, you had too many kids, and then you know what? We also always dog out the women. Takes 2, right? So, but that's really who it is. It's a great book to see. And Pastor Grunwald, Pastor Clater, who was another one of my field workers, Dale Meyer at the SEM said, Dale Meyer, if you see the comments in the book, he wrote one of the hurrahs, I guess, for it. Dale Meyer said, he said it to me privately like this. He said, I know you started to write the book in an urban context. He said, but this book needs to be in every pastor's library. Other questions? I'll go here.
How did you manage while you had COVID? Did you still continue to preach, or what?
I did every Zoom Bible study a week that I taught. Just rolled. I didn't preach. I took 2 weeks off when I was in the COVID. But see, here's how we were able to do it when all the music went down for a couple weeks. Videotape. So we repeated stuff. We never repeated a message. Now, Pastor Bowling, before we found out he had the COVID, he preached one regular. And then when he and I both had the COVID, which we did, then he preached one from his house. And then by the time he was done, I was out and I was able to go back with it. But yeah, thank goodness for that video ministry. It saved us. Saved us. The bowling alley was in the basement of the school. So if you watched your son play up in the gym, he's on the 3rd level, The bowling alley was on the first level. No, the windows were in the church next door. We're talking about the school. Oh, the beautiful windows when you go up the stairs. We still have those, yes. Yeah.
I know things are shut down, but what is the status of the charter school or the school?
Charter school is still going. So the charter school started totally online, at the beginning of the year. And actually tomorrow, K through second graders come back. And then I think it's November 9th, third through fifth graders come back. So, and I'd say 90% of the kids will come back. There's about just a handful, maybe 8 to 10% who are going to stay virtual. It's been, it's hard to recruit in a pandemic. And so we've got like about 90 kids this year. We didn't rise just because it's hard to recruit in that pandemic. And I think the school, so this is the fourth year of the charter school. Here's the future of the charter school in a nutshell. Last year there were no MAP tests. The state of Missouri has always said the only thing we look at are MAP tests. So we'll be taking MAP tests this year. But how do you grade all this after kids were, it was a wash last spring. It's a little bit of a wash this fall, but it's better than it was last spring. So now, how do you grade that to say, give them another 5-year renewal or not? We'll wait and see. Other questions?
I just wanted to say, and I think I've told you this before, I am a Bethlehemer, Bethlehemite, whatever you want to call it. I started my formal education at Bethlehem, kindergarten, first grade, and second grade. We were living in that area at the time. So Bethlehem is dear to me.
Yeah, yeah. It's a great place. So, like, what are kind of future directions and that stuff? We have been blessed. Our ministry has grown a lot, and we have been blessed. I've been blessed to have a colleague now. He was a field worker like Pastor Grunwald was, and he was my vicar. And Pastor Gerard Bowling, you may have run across him. He is incredible preacher and just a great leader. Our ministry, our outreach ministry, has grown to a point that I don't think we could do it if it was just one of us. He's here through a grant every 3 years called More Greater Things, and Resurrection has participated in that. And that aim is to reach out. It includes the work we're doing in the Ferguson area, which, by the way, this week we're restarting in Ferguson, our outreach ministry to kids up at Chapel of the Cross initially, and then we'll probably get back to Ebenezer in a few weeks to come. But man, God has worked out so many things with that. In about a year and a half, we're going to have to work out on the next 3 years. Hopefully we can keep Pastor Bowling. I don't know how we would go back without that help. I just can't do it. There are so many areas. To give you an example, even through the pandemic, we were reaching with the gospel 200 kids a week. And last year, there were 150, some from here from Resurrection, there were 150 Lutherans who volunteered to help in our work in Ferguson. You think about, when do you get 150 Lutherans from different churches all on the same project? Nobody has done that. And so, Pastor Bowling's been really gifted in it. Most recently, God worked out something very incredible. So Pastor Bowling he's gotten calls and calls and calls and calls. And he had a call last summer, no, it was even summer before last, that was going to pay him 3 times what he makes at our church. 3 times. And he turned it down. And now he just got a call that he accepted, but get this. Higher education is really important to him. By the end, week after next, he has his doctoral defense. He wanted to do a doctorate, remotely is what he's done. So he's going to be Dr. Gerard Bowling. And so he's been teaching at some of the Concordias in the past year. He's taught at Concordia Portland, Concordia Minnesota, Concordia Wisconsin, Concordia Texas, just sort of on the side. And now Concordia Texas offered him a call to teach full-time. Great. I mean, who would want to hold someone back from that? Teach leadership and theology. He had worked a deal with them because he said, I don't want to leave my church. He worked a deal with them that he's going to teach all remote except for two weeks of the year. Isn't that a cool thing? And the cool thing about it is, this is, you know that God has worked things out because, so he's 30, 31 or something, I'm 58. I'm at a time in my life, I did a lot of things. I traveled, did some stuff. I don't want to do that anymore. I just want to be the pastor of Bethlehem Lutheran Church like I've been. But I want to stay home. I got grandkids and all that. Let him be the rock star, but the cool thing is, he couldn't have this thing together if I wasn't, part of it to say, hey, I really just want to be here. I'm not planning on writing books. I just wrote that one. So, God worked that out. So it's a good team. And here's how it really benefits the church. This is what's huge. So Pastor Bowling told me about, I didn't really know anything about the University of Phoenix, which is a pretty hot commodity, these days. That kind of online where a lot of universities like that, especially in the business realm and that, they have kind of, I don't know if it's in addition to or instead of, they have started to less and less just get academic people, where they've gone out and they've gotten successful businessmen to teach their business, and women to teach their business people, to teach their business courses, because their students want to know people who have done it, kind of thing, and not just the theory of it. Well, here's the cool thing about church and urban ministry. One thing that Gerard told me was, he said, when you leave the place that you're doing, whether it's business or church or whatever, you've got really about 9 to 12 months of where you're still effective, because everything changes so fast, And so the thing that's cool, and I think he sees, man, he's a smart guy, just like Pastor Grunwald. The things that these guys these days are seeing is this, like for Pastor Bowling. If you're going to make a dent nationally in urban ministry, why not still have one foot in the game, where you can see what's changed in the game, And so he's got 1 foot in the game, and 1 foot to tell the world, and to equip people. I can't think of a more effective approach. So that's exciting. But God worked it out again. Man. Other questions? Yep.
I was wondering, a number of years ago, you tried to do a ministry at St. Matthew. Why didn't that part of the city work out?
Great question. Claire asked, we were at St. Matthew a few years ago. Why didn't that work out? Well, it worked out in the sense of, it worked out for all the things that we tried to do there. We went in with the ideas, we're going to change your mission vision and say you need to reach this community. It's great that you got people commuting in who don't live in the neighborhood, 90% of them, but you got to reach this community. So we got an after school kids program started like we did at Bethlehem. We said, you know what, we're going to have to change some things that go on Sunday morning and ways in which worship, some stylistic things, and we did. All that stuff worked. Worship grew in the first 10 months from 30 people on a Sunday morning to 60. New people, new adults. We didn't even get that many kids to worship yet, so there was even more growth to happen. The problem was, when we came to St. Matthew, we told them, we're not here to start Bethlehem North. We're here to equip and help you. Their perspective was, hey, we love what you're doing. Keep doing it. We said, no, we're not here to do it. We're here to help you do it. And at that point, we waited some longer time. There were some tests along the way. They didn't want to do it. And that is a real truism among urban churches. You know, some people have said this in the Missouri district, even in the city. They've said this about me, and I'm okay because I understand it. And they kind of say it about our church, but more about me. You either like me or you really don't like me. There's really no middle ground. And that's okay. Yeah, I'm a taste that you got to acquire for some people. We're going to go for it, and we're going to go for it the best that we can. And we're not going to hold back, and we're going to do everything we can. And not everybody will embrace that. And it's going to take investment. It's going to take not just money investment, people investment. I mean, like, look at these. Look at this group. I mean, this is only part of the group. I mean, 2 rehearsals a week, 2 hours, 5:30 to 7:30, and then a taping session, 5:30 to 7:30, and then they're involved in other ministry too? Who does that stuff? You know? Oh yeah, you do have jobs. Yes, yes. But I mean, and it's not that it's always like that. I mean, we can't continue at that pace. It's going to change and realign as we get out of just being online. So St. Matthew just didn't embrace that. And now we, right before the pandemic hit, we were about to do something over at Ebenezer, starting this thing called Ebenezer 2.0, a worship service there. We're already there with a kids program and a kids ministry. So, but we would like to take this whole program, kind of the Bethlehem direction is called More Greater Things. I mean, that our approach. We'd like to take that throughout the north side and that. But here's the challenge. The challenge is our polity. You can't force anybody. I mean, you can't force anybody for real. But like, see, if we were ELCA or we were the Catholic Church, the Catholic Church would just come in and say, hey, there's 10 of you here worshiping. It's not a good stewardship. There's 20 of you worshiping 1 mile away. They would, bring it together. We don't have that ability. If you got money, if you're a church in the city, if you got money, you can last as long as you want, and to the detriment, really, I think, of ministry many times. If you tell someone about that, they're not going to like that either. But you have to reach that community. What is the reason to be there except for that, to reach that community? I mean, Kurt can tell you a lot. I mean, from the Zion days, he and I lived it together when I was at the Center.
Probably on a bad model. They don't change, they're just holding on.
And so, okay, I'm at that time where, I am anti-technology. I just am. But I've had to become technology. Now, I don't know how to do it, but I surround myself with people who know how to do it. But where would we have been in the pandemic if we would have said thumbs down to live streaming? We'd have been nothing, We wouldn't have gotten those people from out of town back. Jake up in Chicago doesn't reconnect, So, we got to adapt. Oh, one other thing that live streaming did? You'll understand this, Mr. TV over there. It shortened the sermons. For real. They taught me. I mean, I wanted to listen. I talked to a lot of people. They said, look, if you're going to live stream something, we were famous for 2-hour church services, even beyond that, 3-hour. And everybody liked it. We're all cool with that back then. Is it better today, shorter, or? Yes. I was asking Sherry, not Sharon. But yeah, it is better. It is better. But so we went in to say every live stream session, we want to be between an hour and an hour and 15 minutes, never above that. And if we got to cut stuff. And, Pastor Bowling and I have adapted messages to say, look, you got to be on point with that. We're going to be a better church coming out, That's been a challenge. Kids stuff. on the one hand, with all the stuff that we deliver to 200 kids a week, so we bring lessons, the written part of the lessons, we deliver to them, and then Pastor Bowling sets up through the video ministry some stuff on YouTube, so there's something going on there. But as far as gathering, it's been hard. Now actually, coincidentally, Sherry and Sherelle, about a few weeks ago, started getting kids to come up to play kickball. And what did you guys do? Did you do something yesterday? Yeah. So just starting to get people involved and get people back toward that. But in the pandemic, kids and youth ministry has been really, really hard. Although 2 weeks ago, I just started a youth confirmation class online. So, but teaching on Zoom is different, especially when they don't put their face up there, and so you got to do it differently. You got to figure out, you got to ask people questions. Hey, Robbie, what do you think of that? Robbie, right? Oh, yeah. Basketball has continued. That might have been how some people got COVID even, but could be. Yeah, so my son, Dan, he goes up and once a month he's done basketball. He's really made basketball ministry over the last decade, and he's kept it up with the guys, with some guys. So he has about 12, 13 guys up in the gym. I mean, he opens the windows, does what he can, but I'm glad you brought that up, Sharon. Do basketball, hang out on the street, which is it, Other questions? 2 minutes. The 2-minute warning has come. We're going into the 2-minute drill.
Anything on the housing that you've done in the past?
So we haven't built any new houses. The climate politically just is not great with tax credits. It just hasn't been. One of our projects is at 15 years now, so we made it there. We've cared for them well, built good community, with them. With the housing that we have, and then, on Jefferson with the big geospace project, life is changing, and it's changing so much for the better. And it's changed at various stages. Those of you who remember the old neighborhood, one thing that's really cool that you'll see now, so we had a big problem with street racing. If you think of Natural Bridge by Fairgrounds Park, by Old Beaumont High School, and if you rode that, it becomes Palm, and then becomes sort of like 14th, as you go down toward the Dome, you got the picture where they would just race. And in fact, our houses on Palm/Natural Bridge, in a stretch of 10 months, in a stretch of about 10 months, if you go back to May, we haven't had any recent, we had 5 times where cars hit our houses. I mean, because they couldn't make that turn by the White Castle there on 14th, I guess, becoming Palm. And it was a mess. In fact, one car, even though the house's foundation was built 15 feet up from the street, one car went airborne and went into the side living room of the house. Well, I say all that to say this. Our alderman, Brandon Bosley, he has been incredible. Brandon Bosley, yes, the same Brandon Bosley who took a lot of crap from people about a year and a half ago when he said, Governor, I want you to bring the National Guard in to control crime because our neighborhood's not being controlled. He took crap from people in the neighborhood and there, but I've always applauded Brandon. I've known Brandon since Brandon was 13, 14 years old. His dad, Freeman Bosley Sr., was previously our alderman. And Brandon's piece was really simple. I grew up when it was a mess. It's gotten better. I don't want to see it go back to a mess. We need help. That's Brandon. And, well, Brandon, so now things are getting better. And right on Palm Natural Bridge, that was a big street, probably a 6-laner on there. It's been shrunk in the last 30 days. 1 lane traffic, 1 parking lane, medians in the middle like you see on Kings Highway. You know, so, I mean, and then right down the street from us, where Salisbury and Palm come together, there's a traffic circle. You know, one of those circles? Yeah, huge, wonderful. You know, I told Brandon, I said, the street racers are gonna hate it. And they will, but, I mean, and you know what it looks like? It's starting to look like a residential neighborhood, which is what we want, you know? So we're making strides toward that, but that geospace is going to change everything. It is already, but it's going to take time, because remember, retail doesn't come in until residential is solid. And other questions? Yes.
So, I don't know if everybody knows, but are you still gonna ref basketball?
You know what, I am. This is weird because it's only happened. So I just ref in the PHL in the city because I can get in, get out quicker. And by the way, that's another thing in the book. If you see the book I write about, you know, to be able to continue, you got to have distractions in life. And I can go into ball games, and I can't cancel ball games easily. So, you know, like sometimes I'll get down I'll do I do mainly varsity games, but sometimes I'll go over and do a JV game at Vashon. I can go in there, do the JV game, and be back in my office by 6:30 and do a meeting, you know, and that. But you need those distractions. PHL was not going to play until January, and all of a sudden last week, now games started getting scheduled for December 1st. So, yeah, it's a fun thing. Other questions? Well, thank you, everybody. Thanks for being so supportive of us and standing with us, and your gifts and your encouragements. They mean a lot. And I pray that it'll continue for many years to come. When we close with a benediction. The grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, the love of God, the fellowship of the Holy Spirit, be and remain with us all. Amen.